What's up, guys? Welcome back to Odd Arcade. This is Cody. If you haven't been here before, feel free to subscribe, join the channel. This is a brand new PlayStation channel. Would love to see you guys here. Today we're talking about the Xbox Series S and this crazy video IGN released yesterday, I believe, suggesting that the Xbox Series S is faster than the PlayStation 5. Complete lunacy. Just want to debunk that here, any notion of that, and sort of break down what the Series S is and who it's actually for. Here's their video.
The Xbox Series S could be faster than the PS5. On paper, the Series S will have the same graphical features as the more expensive Series X. That includes ray tracing and a max frame rate of 120 FPS. In fact, the only hardware difference between the two sibling consoles, aside from hard drive space, appears to be the GPU. While they're both built on the same AMD architecture, the Series S GPU will feature less RAM at a slower speed to accommodate the console's output of 1440p as opposed to the Series X's 4K. However, since both feature the same CPU, that potentially makes the Xbox Series S faster than the PlayStation 5 and for half the price. According to a recent tweet from The Verge's Tom Warren, both the Series X and Series S use the same CPU running at 3.6 GHz. This means that Microsoft's $299 next-gen console features a processor that runs 0.1 GHz faster than the PlayStation 5.
So basically what they said, or actually what they said, is the Series S has a processor that is faster than the PlayStation 5. The CPU is 0.10 gigahertz faster than the PlayStation 5's. Okay, cool. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. That's like me suggesting my Honda Civic has a timing belt that rotates slightly faster than my neighbor's Ferrari's timing belt. And we'll go, wow, therefore my Civic is faster. Is its timing belt faster? Yeah. Is the car faster? Absolutely not. What engine's in my Civic? Oh, it's a 4-cylinder. Okay. What engine's in my neighbor's Ferrari? Well, it's a inline 6 with a turbocharger. Oh, okay. Is my Civic still faster? Not a chance. Does my Civic still have the same features? Well, yeah, it's got wheels. It's got the features of the new one. It's got wheels. It's got paint, door handles. Never mind that the wheels on my neighbor's Ferrari are twice the size, twice as wide with sport tires on them. Never mind that, but it's got the same features. And look, I'm not dogging on the Series S as a bad console. I think it's a great console for the price. I think 1080p, 120 hertz or 120 FPS hertz, and 1440p at 60 is awesome. That's a great place to be. That's a sweet spot for me personally. But to suggest that it's faster than the PlayStation 5 is nonsense. The PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, these consoles are graphically probably 3 times as powerful as the Series S from what I've read online. And you can just look at the spec sheets. I'm not a tech guy. I can't break all that down, but I've been around tech my whole life. They're at least 3 times as powerful. And you can just go to Reddit. You can go look at Digital Foundry's breakdown. They'll suggest this to you. What is the Series S and who's it for? So if you look at Xbox's own video where they break down what the Series S is, what its features are, and all that, you'll see a splash screen at the end that kind of gives you all the features laid out. And this is a good sort of product for Xbox to market because it's got all these features. But you have to ask yourself when IGN says
the Series S will have the same graphical features as the more expensive Series X.
So let's look at that splash screen. It says you get 1440p or 2K, and you get 120 FPS. Okay, it says you get RDNA 2 technology and ray tracing. That's awesome. You get an SSD. That's sick. Basically a brand new foundation for this thing. It's a new console. It's all awesome. Yes, you get those things. But what does that mean when you get those things? Okay, well, let's look at it. You get 1440p and you get 120 FPS. Do you get those things at the same time? No, you do not. You get 1440p at 30 and 60 FPS. And you might even get 4K at 30 FPS, and I'll explain that later. But you get 1440p at 60 FPS, and you get 1080p 120 FPS. So you're not going to get them both at the same time unless it's Ori and the Will of the Wisp. Some very a game that's not graphically intensive, a Counter-Strike on PC, a League of Legends on PC, one of those types of games. You're not going to see The Witcher 4, The Wilder Hunt, or whatever it's going to be called at 1440p, 120 FPS. It's not going to happen. The console is not capable of that. So putting those up next to each other, it's a marketing gimmick. It's not going to happen in real life. RDNA 2 technology, yes, it does have it. That's a big plus. That's awesome. And it has ray tracing. That's cool. But what kind of ray tracing? Is it going to be the level of the Series X? No, it's probably not. It's not even going to be the level of the PlayStation 5, which is slightly under the Series X. It's going to be probably minimal ray tracing. You're going to see some helmets ray traced, probably puddles on the ground, on the a walkway or something. It's going to be minimal ray tracing, but it's got ray tracing, so we can say it's got ray tracing, and that's fine. But it's not the same. It has a better CPU. Absolutely, it does. The CPU is probably the biggest improvement for this. I have a PlayStation 4 Pro behind me here. The CPU in those and the Xbox One gen are garbage. They were garbage when it first came out. So it does have a better CPU, and that's a plus for this thing. But what does that mean? Honestly, it means that your menus are going to be smoother. You're not going to have stuttering menus as much. You're going to be able to switch between games faster. The SSD is going to help with that as well. That's a big part of that. But it runs sort of that back-end stuff. Will it help graphically? Yes. If you watch Digital Foundry's video, it will help graphically, but games are going to lean more on the CPU, apparently, this generation, but I honestly don't believe it's going to make that big of a difference. The GPU is really, or the graphics performance unit, is really what does most of your graphical work. A CPU can bottleneck a GPU. So if you have a really bad CPU and a decent GPU, the CPU will hinder your GPU. It won't be able to run as much because a lot of games do require some CPU work. And if the CPU is holding it back and it can't get that work out of the CPU, it doesn't matter how much power you have, it's going to limit your gaming performance. If you have a great CPU and a very basic GPU, you're not going to get very much gaming performance at all. Your ceiling is very limited because most of the work's done on a GPU. So to suggest, IGN suggesting that this 0.10 processor increase matters. It's not the processor that even matters. It's the wrong processor to begin with, and it doesn't matter at all. It's a throwaway statistic, basically. But I will give it, the CPU is improved on all these next-gen consoles. That's a big plus. It's great. Also, it's touted to have an SSD. That's awesome, and I'm a big fan of that. It does have an SSD just like its big brother, the X, but is it the same? No, it's a 500 gigabyte-ish SSD. So, yes, you get an SSD. That's a big improvement. I'm not discounting that at all. The speeds will be great. They're going to be like half as fast as the PlayStation 5s, by the way, IGN. But it's going to be great to have that SSD. But it's a 500 gigabyte SSD. So take Modern Warfare. Call of Duty Modern Warfare right now on PC is like 212 gigs or something. I have it. It's a pain. I update it daily. On console, I think it's like 180, 190. So what are these next-gen games going to be? Is 500 gigs really going to hold? It's going to hold 4 games. I'm hoping most games stay at the 100 gig mark, the 120, but we might see a lot more uncompressed textures and asset packs thrown into these games. I don't know. I'm kind of worried about the space, and if that's the case and you can only put 5 games on a console with no disk drive, then what are you going to do? You got to buy expansion cards, and those aren't going to be cheap. So just keep that in mind. So yes, The Xbox Series S touts all the features that the X and PlayStation 5 have. Yes, it does, but they're limited. Let's be real. They're limited features, and a lot of it, like the FPS versus fidelity or resolution, is you got to trade off. So it doesn't give you all these things together as one and says, look, it can do 1440p, 120 FPS. Here you go. It's this great package for $300. It can do those things, but it does them. You got to choose as to which you want to do. So that's the only point I have here. IGN is off their meds if they suggest this console is faster than the PlayStation 5. And that brings me to who's this console for? I genuinely think the Series S is for someone coming from a Xbox One S. Or an Xbox One original. If you have those consoles, this is a great upgrade. It's about 4 times more powerful. You get this great console that runs everything at 1440p. You can do 120, 1080p. That's great. 120, 1080p is a great place to be. It's awesome. But if you have an Xbox One X right now, this is not the console for you. This is a marginally better console than the Xbox One X. Graphically, it's very similar. Like almost identically similar. It's got the SSD. You've got RDNA 2 technology with some ray tracing. You get these features. It's going to be uncapped. So the Series or the Xbox One X sort of limited you at 60, even though it probably could have done 120, 1080p. The card itself, it kind of limits you at 60 just based on the way the console was built and what it was built for. The parity between all those consoles, but you're not getting a big improvement here. And I don't think you should really jump to this one. I think you should make the leap to the Series X or a PlayStation 5. And that's what I would do. And not to mention that, and I heard it mentioned, I guess, on Austin Evans' channel, but of all places, but the Series S might not be that future-proof. I mean, are you going to want to play a game in 3 years that's going to be made on the Unreal Engine 5, this new engine, on a console that's really not much better than the One X that's out right now, that's been out for years now? I don't know how it's going to run. That PlayStation 5 demo, and Austin Evans, they were talking about this as well. They were talking about this. The PlayStation 5 demo was running at 30 FPS on a PlayStation 5 at like 2K, so 1440p at 30 FPS on a PlayStation 5, which is probably 3 times as powerful as this Series S. So what's it going to run like on the Series S, a game that looks like that? Not well. It's going to be sub 1080p textures, probably sub 1080p textures at 30. So that's not going to look great for next gen. So if you want to be future-proof, even if you don't care about 4K, I would get the big boy. I'd get the big console, because even games that come out, even if you're playing at 1440p or 1080p, you're going to get great-looking games at good frames at that point. This Series S will be far behind, in my opinion. So that's where I see it. That's where I see the market here. In terms of pricing, Sony's going to come out with a $499 and $399 console for the digital edition. That's where I see them, if anybody cares about pricing. But that's where I see Sony coming out as a response. I thought that for a while. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. IGN is off their meds. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to anybody suggesting that looking at these specs and making arguments based on sort of tech they don't understand. These numbers are nonsense. So make your own choices. Use your own brain. That's what I always suggest. The PlayStation 5 is going to be a sick console. So is the Xbox Series X. I would avoid the S unless you're on the original PlayStation 4 or the series or the One S and the One original. But yeah, that's what I've got to say. To be fair, I think the S is going to sell like hotcakes. I think it's going to be the best-selling console for Xbox, even over the X. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's all I got to say. Thank you guys for being here. Feel free to like and subscribe. And best of luck to you. Peace.